now, from what I've read, you had prior issues with some people on the show. Where do you stand with those people now?
Well, funny enough, I had issues with people who are at heart good people, who were young and were going through their own things and made some mistakes. Right now, funny enough, we are really cool, but we're cool because the issues we have been talked about, they've been confronted, they've been soulfully dealt with. And there were a lot of things going on with other people on the cast growing up. They were younger than me also. They were 10 years younger than me. And there were things that they had to deal with that were very hard at their age, not to make excuses for any behavior that might not have been too great. But I also was going through a lot, at the time. I was a young mother at the time. I took the job very seriously. I showed up on time. I really was very serious about my craft. And they were younger than me. They were teenagers. There was a lot of foolery and jumping around on the set. None of them had really had the long haul resume that I had, and they couldn't have possibly have known how serious the situation was for me. Of course, you probably have heard, on the news. You can Google it because once there's a race issue, or they perceive to be a race issue, the press wants to pick up on that and run that to the ground. Media really wants to distract us with these kinds of things instead of looking at what some of the things that are really more important in the world. I was on the set and I had a confrontation with Will Friedle because he had called me and Jemima. was wearing a scarf. We were in between scenes, and I was wearing a scarf on my head because I was in between my hair and makeup, and we were going to shoot later that day. So I came out, and he was like, "Oh, you look like Aunt Jemima." So I just what the hell? What did you, what? I was so mad. And, none of the younger kids really knew what that meant. But the parents who were right by me in the scene, they looked at each other like, oh, my gosh, I can't. Because they're older. They know that's not cool, So I went up to him after on the set because, after you do a scene, sometimes you hang out and you're eating on the craft services and, and I can't remember verbatim because I don't want to get it wrong, but I confronted him about it, and he apologized, but it was a very flip kind of, what are you talking about? Aunt Jemima is just like the Jolly Green Giant. Why would you think that was racist? Well, this particular person I didn't know, he really had zero contact with black people and black culture. I really was it, So he really, I really do believe him. He didn't know, but at the time, I was pissed. And some of my family was saying, you should sue. Now, at the time, I could have probably tried to bring up a lawsuit and probably gotten money. But I was like, I'll probably never work again if I do something like that. And I went to the executive producer, and I talked to him about it. And he said to me, he's not racist. He just really didn't know that was offensive in a racial way. Well, funny enough, Will has come since to me, and he said, hey, Trina, that moment in time, it just completely changed my life. It changed my comedy. It changed my view of things. I didn't know. Now, he didn't have to say this to me. When he said this to me, this is years out the gate. No one's really going to, his life was set. He's cool, He didn't have to really say that to me, but he did. And I remember I'd shown up before. This is something that has happened recently in the last year, 18 months of us talking about it. But I remember I do believe that it did affect it because I'd come to the Girl Meets World set, and Ryder had come up to me, who had played my boyfriend, and he said, he actually apologized for Will again. He said, Will was really sorry when he said that Aunt Jemima thing, and I really hope you don't. Now, we're talking about 15 years later that Ryder's coming up to me and apologizing on Will's behalf. So when Will finally says to me, as of late, this affected me, I have to believe him because I wasn't even thinking about it then. It kind of, but what had happened was I was seeing them go on a lot of Comic-Con conventions, okay? And the four of them were hitting them. And I'm thinking, why am I not invited to one of these? This is kind of strange. They had a very cliquey group, and that's fine. But you gotta put a little hand out for the sister that helped give you those last 3 years. So I got very, very pissed off about that particular statement. I had an incident with Ben that wasn't very pleasant, where he called me a bitch on the show, and it really was a young kid being jealous in the moment. It was a show that I was doing that was about my father. Ben was used to having most of the shows on him, and the only thing I probably could give to him is that he was 17 and didn't know, or I don't know, just young and foolish. So I was pissed about that experience, and I had another experience where I come onto Girl Meets World, and I didn't know Danielle was going through her own situation, and she didn't want any other women on the show at the time, or that was told to me, and there was a real coldness there. And, I just was like, what is this? I've been kind to these people. I've taken the blows of their immaturity, and now you're just going to tramp along and make this money, and you can't lend a handout, to a sister that was, pretty much I played the game. I'm like, I played the game. What's the problem here? So I tweeted that out. I had like a little diary of the tweets one day. Then about, I don't know, maybe 4 months later, the press decided to pick it up, because but the thing about it is, I never said anybody on the show was racist. I never said that Will was racist. I said he called me Aunt Jemima. Him being racist, you could imply that, but I never said it. But the press did. And that's what they picked up on. They said Trina Mcgee deals with her extreme racist. Never said I had an extreme racist problem on the show. But they went there, they went with it, and they made it a lot huger than what it was in terms of race. They really pushed the race. And I really want people to understand that when you look at the media and when you read headlines, you have got to take, especially when it comes to celebrities, you've got to take it with a grain of salt. There are certain things that they want to hit, that they know that are going to hit. There is an agenda with the media. It's not like it was where you had, back in the day, we had local news. You have political parties actually owning the media now. So as, we're in these times, it makes more sense to say the cast is racist, Well, when that happened, what it did is it put me in an awkward situation, and it put them in an awkward situation, because now we're looking at cancel culture. Now we're looking at them being canceled and me being yelled at by white people for most of the rest of my life, So when it happened, when it hit the press, Will, Danielle, and Ryder got together, and they approached me, and they said, hey, I can't remember exactly all the logistics, but it was like, hey, let's meet, let's talk this out at the time. So what I did do is I spoke to Will first. And that's when Will really and sincerely apologized, and he'd wished he had done it before. And actually, when the tweet first hit, he wrote a letter to me. But I hadn't read it because I was kind of bitter. I was just like, whatever, I didn't know what he was writing, and I didn't even really look at it. But then when it got to hits the press and he called me, I was in a position to really listen to him, and that's when he told me, it really changed my life. I've had to really reevaluate myself, my background, and I would really hate for us not to be friends or not know each other because of a situation like this. And I believed him. I didn't feel that he was calling me out of a sense of, I'm going to lose anything or anything like that, although that was in the air, But that also, what was in the air for me was a lot of danger. I was starting to get a lot of hate comments, DMs that were very, very hateful in my social media, and those were all by Caucasian people. So what we did was we decided over time, and this was a process over a year. It didn't happen right away. I talked with Will, excuse me, and then we made I made a statement on Instagram that was truthful. One of the things that bothered me was that they kept saying it was extreme racism. You know, racism in any form is hard and it's wrong. But I had a grandfather, Trina Mcgee, and he came up from South Carolina to New Jersey, and he had to leave. He had to leave South Carolina because he walked into a store one day, and he paid for something and was given the wrong change. When he was given the wrong change, he told the cashier, "Hey, you gave me the wrong change." And he said, "No, I didn't." And it turned into an argument. And then it turned into, "Nigga, you need to get out of here by sundown." And that's how my family migrated up to New Jersey and then going on to New York. So I know what extreme racism is. I think a lot of the times we're being played on our feelings. Extreme racism is the young brothers who are getting shot by police and so on and so forth. I've never experienced, I get called a name, you know what I'm saying? And that's really kind of a difference between the generations. We tough like that, you know. But I talked to